I've always been fascinated by what people hide in their homes. The secret spaces, the forgotten corners, the places we tell ourselves we'll clean out someday. But after what I've experienced, and after hearing these stories from others who've shared their nightmares with me, I've learned that some discoveries are better left unmade. Some basements should stay locked. Some doors should never be opened. Tonight, I'm sharing 3 true stories about basement discoveries that changed lives forever. Stories that will make you think twice before exploring that dark corner of your own home. These aren't just tales of dusty boxes and old furniture. These are stories of things that should have stayed buried. I bought my first house when I was 28. It was a foreclosure, dirt cheap, in a neighborhood that had seen better days, but was supposedly coming back. The realtor warned me about the basement, said the previous owner had started some renovation work down there, but never finished. She made it sound like an opportunity. I should have known it was a warning. The first few weeks were normal. I focused on the main floors, painting, replacing fixtures, making the place feel like mine. But I kept hearing sounds at night, rhythmic sounds, like someone breathing, heavy, labored breathing that seemed to come from beneath my feet. I told myself it was the pipes. Old houses make noise, everyone knows that. But the sound was too organic, too deliberate. It followed a pattern. Inhale for 4 seconds, exhale for 4 seconds, pause, repeat. Night after night, always starting at 2:17 in the morning. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed a flashlight and headed down to the basement. The previous owner had installed drywall on 3 of the walls, but the 4th wall was still exposed brick. The breathing sound was loudest there. I pressed my ear against the brick and felt it. Warmth. The wall was warm, and it was moving, almost imperceptibly, but moving, in and out, breathing. I tore at the brick with a crowbar, working like a man possessed. The mortar was soft, crumbling easily under pressure, too easily, as if it had been recently replaced. Behind the brick was a space, a crawl space I didn't know existed. I shined my flashlight inside. There were drawings on every surface, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all done in what looked like charcoal or maybe dried blood. They depicted the same scene over and over, a figure crouched in darkness, drawing on walls, and in every image there was something behind the figure, something with too many limbs reaching forward. But that wasn't the worst part. In the center of the crawl space was a sleeping bag, and next to it a pile of protein bar wrappers, fresh ones, and a journal. I grabbed the journal and ran upstairs. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely turn the pages. The entries were dated. The most recent was from 3 days ago. 3 days ago, someone had been living in my basement wall. Someone who wrote about watching me sleep. Someone who wrote about the thing that watched them while they watched me. The final entry read, "It's getting closer. I can hear it in the walls now, moving, scraping. It knows I wrote about it. It knows I tried to warn him. When I'm gone, it will need a new artist. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I called the police. They searched the crawl space and found a tunnel, a hand-dug tunnel that led 3 houses down to another foreclosed property. They found the sleeping bag, the wrappers, the drawings, but they never found the person who lived there. They never found who was watching me. And here's the thing that keeps me up at night. After the police left, after they sealed up the wall, after they promised to patrol the neighborhood, I heard it again, that breathing. But this time, it was coming from inside my bedroom walls. And when I pressed my ear against the drywall, I felt something press back. And I swear I heard scratching, the sound of charcoal on drywall. Someone was drawing. Someone was still there. Or something was learning to draw. Sarah's story came to me through a late-night message. She needed to tell someone, she said. Needed to know she wasn't crazy. I told her I'd listen. I wish I hadn't. Sarah moved into a basement apartment in Brooklyn 6 months ago. It was affordable, which in New York City meant something was wrong with it. But it seemed fine. Sure, it was dark. Sure, the landlord seemed nervous when showing her around. But the price was right, and she was desperate. The apartment came partially furnished. The landlord said the previous tenant had left in a hurry, left most of her things behind. A bed, a desk, a wardrobe. Sarah thought she'd gotten lucky. She cleaned everything thoroughly and moved in the next week. The dreams started immediately. Every night, the same dream. She was lying in bed, unable to move, while a woman stood in the corner of the room. The woman was crying. She was young, maybe mid-20s, with long, dark hair. She wore a yellow dress, and she kept pointing at the wardrobe. Sarah tried to dismiss it, stress from the move, a new environment, but the dreams became more vivid, more detailed. The woman would mouth words she couldn't hear. She'd pound on the walls. She'd scratch at the wardrobe door, her fingers leaving marks that would be gone when Sarah woke up. One night, Sarah awoke to find she couldn't move. Sleep paralysis, she told herself. But the woman was there, not in a dream, there, in her room, solid and real. She was pointing at the wardrobe, frantically, desperately, her mouth forming the same word over and over. Help. When Sarah could move again, she opened the wardrobe. There was a false back panel, behind it a space, and in that space, letters, dozens of letters, all addressed to different people, family, friends, a boyfriend. They were goodbye letters, the last words of someone who'd made a terrible decision. But there was one more thing, a phone, an old smartphone with just enough battery to turn on. The last photo on the phone was of the woman in the yellow dress. She was lying on the bed, Sarah's bed. She wasn't moving, and standing over her, taking the photo, was a reflection in the mirror behind the bed. A reflection Sarah recognized. Her landlord. Sarah went to the police with everything. They investigated. They found records of a missing person, a woman named Emily Chen, who'd rented that apartment 2 years ago, who disappeared without a trace, whose family had been told she'd moved suddenly, whose landlord had said she'd abandoned the apartment. The police arrested him. He confessed to everything. Emily had threatened to report him for the illegal conditions in the apartment. He'd gotten angry. Things escalated. He'd made it look like she'd left, kept her security deposit, rented the apartment again. But here's what Sarah told me that made my blood run cold. After the arrest, after the news crews left, after Emily's family finally got closure, Sarah went back to the apartment one last time to get her things. The woman in the yellow dress was standing by the window. She wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling. And then she faded, just dissolved into nothing. Sarah said she felt relief in that moment, like a weight had lifted from the room. But as she was leaving, she heard something, a whisper, right in her ear. Help me too. Sarah ran. She never went back. The landlord had owned 17 properties over 30 years. The police are still excavating basements.
This last story is mine. I've never told anyone the full truth until now. My grandfather died and left me his house. I'd visited it a few times as a kid, but I'd never been allowed in the basement. Grandfather said it was dangerous. Unstable foundation, bad wiring. The excuses changed, but the rule didn't. No one goes in the basement. When I inherited the house, I found the basement door had 3 deadbolts. 3 deadbolts on a basement door. That should have been my first clue to leave it alone. But I was curious. I was stupid. Inside, the basement was ordinary. Concrete floor, exposed ceiling, metal shelving units. On those shelves were jars. Hundreds of mason jars, each carefully labeled with dates and names. I picked up the nearest one. It was labeled Sarah Mitchell, August 3rd, 1987. Inside was water. just water. I opened it. The smell hit me immediately. Not rotten, not chemical, something else, something organic and wrong. And then I heard it, from inside the jar, a voice, small and distant, screaming. I dropped it, the jar shattered, the water spread across the floor and evaporated almost instantly. And I swear, for just a moment, I saw something, a shape in the vapor, a woman's face, mouth open in a silent scream, before it dissipated completely. I grabbed another jar, Michael Torres, June 12, 1991. I held it up to the light. The water was moving, swirling, and inside the swirling, faces, dozens of faces pressed against the glass from the inside, mouths opening and closing, hands reaching. I went through the dates. They went back decades. 50 years of jars, 50 years of names. I looked some of them up. Missing persons, cold cases, people who'd vanished without explanation. And my grandfather had them, had pieces of them, their last breaths, their final moments, somehow trapped in water. But the worst jar was at the back. It was larger than the others. It was labeled collection vessel, emergency use only. The water inside was dark, almost black, and it was moving with a purpose. Shapes formed and dissolved, faces I recognized from the other jars, all merged together, all screaming silently. There was a note attached, in my grandfather's handwriting. To whoever finds this, I was protecting you. I was protecting everyone. These aren't victims, they're predators. They're the ones who hurt others. I learned how to trap them, how to keep them from moving on to whatever comes next, how to make sure they couldn't hurt anyone ever again. But the jar is almost full. When it's full, they'll be strong enough to break free. You need to keep collecting. You need to keep them contained, or they'll all get out at once. I'm sorry. There's no other way. I wanted to destroy them, wanted to smash every jar and let whatever was inside finally be free. But I couldn't, because what if he was right? What if these were monsters and I was about to unleash them? But what if he was wrong? What if these were victims and I was keeping them trapped? I sealed the basement back up. I put the deadbolts back on. I moved into the house. And every night I hear them. Voices from below, sometimes screaming, sometimes pleading, sometimes laughing. And sometimes, late at night, I hear my grandfather's voice, explaining, justifying, telling me about each person in each jar. Some of the stories make me think he was right. Some make me think he was a monster. Most make me think he was both. The jar is fuller now than when I found it. I haven't added to it, but it's getting fuller, which means they're getting stronger, which means someday soon I'll have to make a choice. Keep collecting like he did, or break every jar and hope he was wrong about what happens next. I don't know which choice is right. I don't know if there is a right choice. All I know is that I understand now why some discoveries should stay buried, why some basements should stay locked, why some secrets should die with the people who kept them.
These three stories share a common thread. We found things we weren't meant to find. We opened doors that should have stayed closed. We looked into darkness, and the darkness looked back. If there's a lesson here, it's simple. Some mysteries aren't worth solving. Some questions shouldn't be answered. And if you ever move into a house with a locked basement, maybe leave it that way. Sweet dreams.